protecting your peace. Hey there, nerdy minds. Welcome to Nerdy Psychology, where we break down mental health with a string space, out of the box, and well, nerdy perspective. I'm your host, Dr. Angel, and I'm going to guide you through this weird and wonderful journey of psychology. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. This is a place where we geek out on psychology while leveling up our mental wellness. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can stay in the loop. Now grab a notebook and a pen because today's episode is all about boundaries. And trust me, this is one of those topics you're going to want to take notes on. Let's dive in. Struggling with no? Here's how boundaries can transform your relationships. Imagine you just got home after a long day. You're exhausted. You kick off your shoes, you grab a snack, and you leave your front door wide open. Anyone could walk in. Your nosy neighbor, a random stranger, even a raccoon with questionable life choices. Sounds ridiculous, right? Because you lock your door to protect what's inside. It's not about punishing the people on the outside. It's about protecting what's on the inside. And the same thing is true when you go to leave your house for work in the day. You grab your stuff, you pack your lunch, you fill up your car, you lock your door and you get in that car and you zoom down the road because you want to protect what's there while you're not. And this is exactly how boundaries work in relationships. When we're locking that door, we're not sitting there going, gosh, I wonder if I offended someone who wanted to come in and steal my stuff today. I wonder, did I offend that burglar or that random stranger or that other person? I wonder what they're going to think of me. Oh, they might be mad that I locked my front door. Hello, that's totally ridiculously, insanely not how we think, right? We don't think that way. However, as soon as I say the B word, boundaries, that's exactly those thoughts that start running through our head. And so boundaries work in an ebb and flow in relationships, and they're about protection. They are not about punishing other people. So if you have ever felt guilty for setting boundaries, feeling like you're pushing people away or being selfish, I see you. I hear you. But today we are going to flip that script because boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about protecting your peace. So let's get to it. Before we can really dive deeply, let's define what we're talking about with boundaries. I know it's a word we hear a lot of, but I think it's a word that maybe we're not always sharing the same definition of. So boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about what we choose to participate in or step away from. Well, let's break it down. There are different types of relationships, right? There's romantic relationships with an unhealthy boundary. Your partner constantly is checking your phone, tracking your location, or getting upset when you spend time with other people. Healthy boundaries, you have open communication, respect for each other's privacy, and support each other's individual interests. Or let's talk about friendships, right? Like unhealthy boundaries. Your friend always calls when they need something, but disappears when you might need something. Healthy boundaries, a balanced friendship where both people can give and both people can receive support. Family relationships, an unhealthy boundary. These all could be laundry lists a mile long, but your parents expect you to drop everything whenever they call, even though you're an adult with your own life and your own family. Healthy boundaries, you set limits on how often you could engage or communicate or have your availability. Workplace. And this is one I have find The more we have integrated technology, the more this one becomes more challenging for people, that we need this boundary. Think about, it used to be we would leave work, we would clock out, and really it stayed there. Work stayed at work. And we went home and we lived our home life and did our home things until we got in that car and showed back up at that job the next day. But that's not how a lot of our jobs or works or careers even work anymore. We might leave at a certain time of day, but we may have to field phone calls and emails and messages and Zooms, or all these things that can happen between leaving work and coming back to work the next day. So, an unhealthy boundary could be your boss might expect you to answer emails all hours, even on the weekends. And the healthy boundary is you can set a clear work life balance limit, like I do not check emails after 6 p.m., or I do not check emails on the weekend. When you set a boundary, you're saying, this is what I am comfortable with, and this is what I will not participate in. Boundaries are not a laundry list of things the other person has to follow. They're not this list of rules. Here are my boundaries. I cannot tell you in a counseling sessions how many times people have walked in when we were talking about boundaries, and they came in so happy and so proud and like, Dr. Angel, here's my list of boundaries, and these are the things everybody in my world has to follow. Stop. Red light. No, 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 ma'am. No, sir. No, no, no. That is not how they work. It is about me. They're my rules for me, for my emotions, for my time, for my energy, for my space, for whatever resources that is, they are mine. Nobody else, they do not have the job to know and to abide by them. It is about me. Now, of course, the closer the relationship, we have talked about those boundaries and we have mutual respect for each other in those boundaries, but it's still about me. It's funny. I was listening to a conversation the other day, and somebody was talking about how they were on a dating site and that they dated this person for a little while, and the relationship broke up over because of a phone call going too long. And the person was like, well, I told you when we started talking that I didn't have much time. And the other person was like having the conversation and shared things. And then the first person was upset because the second person talked and shared, but the first person never made an initiation of, hey, I got to go now, or can we finish this up later? They were just upset that the other person didn't magically know exactly what that time was. That's not how boundaries work. Boundaries are, hey, I got like 10 minutes to chat. And then when we get close to that 10 minutes, like, hey, I got to go. Can we talk about this later? Or can I call you back when I get home, or whatever? It is not about making sure that other person is monitoring them for us. Like, we have to monitor that for ourselves, and we have to take the initiative for ourselves. And so, why boundaries matter? Quote time. And when we talk about boundaries, we need to talk about Dr. Henry Cloud, because they are literally wrote the book on boundaries. And when we change our world, we change what we're willing to accept. Without boundaries, we end up burnt out from saying yes to everything, or resentful because we feel like people keep crossing the line, or, and a big one, trapped in toxic cycles because we're just too afraid to rock the boat. Let's talk about some examples. You love your partner, but they expect you to text back immediately. The moment you don't, they get upset. You feel smothered. A healthy boundary: I care about you, but I can't be available for you 24/7. I'll check my phone when I can, but I also need space. It's about communicating that. It's about following through with that. Example two, family one. you have a toxic relative who constantly makes negative comments about your life choices. Healthy boundary might be, instead of arguing every time you decide, I won't engage in conversations that disrespect me. If that conversation starts, I will either distract that conversation, or I will choose to end that conversation and politely walk away. It's about me removing myself from that conversation. Work example: your boss sends late night emails expecting a response. You don't respond. The next day you say, I do not check work emails after this time, but I will handle it first thing in the morning. Boundaries are how you teach people to treat you. We teach people to treat us by what we accept in our life. When you respect your limits, others do too, because we remove ourselves when that's not happening. So, okay, Dr. Angel, I hear you and I get it, but this is so hard. Yes, yes, it is. And I'm not saying it's easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't be having these conversations. They are hard, they're very difficult. I can't tell you the number of people who we just want everyone to like us and accept us and think positive, great, wonderful things about us. And we have this connection, this belief, this faulty belief that if I put a limit, if I put a boundary, if I say no, I might lose that relationship forever. So instead of putting a boundary, I just let anything happen because I would rather that person than the risk of losing something. But the problem is, you've lost something, you just haven't seen it yet. You've lost your self respect, your self honor, your time, your emotional, your energy, your finance, whatever you've been pouring out, that's what you've lost. And I want you to think about that, and you look into your relationships. And when we're working on boundaries, we're not sitting down and making the laundry list of, oh my gosh, Dr. Angel, I hear you. And there's like all these things I let happen in my world, and I can't believe it's gone on this long. So I am going to start putting a boundary for every one of these things. That doesn't help us either, because it becomes overwhelming. Hello, you'll be in shock. And so will all the people around you be in shock, because they won't even know how to respond with you at that point. It's important to work on our boundaries very slowly and one thing at a time, because it gives us the opportunity to make new habits. Because, first of all, we have to make that new habit for ourselves. We also have to communicate this to the people in our world in a way that is respectful and open and honest and transparent. We have to give ourselves that space to learn and grow and create. So maybe it's, we set one boundary. Maybe it's the boundary of, I am not going to commit to anything or say yes to anything till I've thought about it overnight. Maybe that's just a little rule you have for yourself. So then when something happens and somebody needs I need an immediate answer, well, then that has to be no, because you want to think about it overnight. Of course, you own your boundaries. So if it's something that's really meaningful for you, you can make an exception because they're your boundaries. But the end of the day is, we can take certain spaces and have a little line for ourselves. That line we're drawing, it's in the sand. We can cover that line up. We are not making these permanent lines, because boundaries have to have some flexibility. Nothing works in that rigidity. Maybe the boundary is, I'm not going to engage in conversations that talk negatively about people in my world. I don't want to hear negative energy anymore. Or maybe I don't want to engage in conversations over politics anymore. It's everywhere. I can't get away from it. And I don't want to hear it. Good, bad, I don't care what side of it it is. I just don't want to hear it. So I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to say, I got to go now. This is not a conversation I want to talk about, or redirect it. Those are some boundaries we can set for ourselves very quickly and very easily in our world. Start small and start on one thing, and hold yourself to that boundary when it works to hold yourself to that boundary. So, how do we set and maintain these boundaries? Well, we're going to do this slowly, and we're going to do this authentically, and we're going to do this transparently, and we're going to do this successfully. And all those things happen kind of in the doing of it and giving it that time to marinate and grow. It's not going to happen overnight. You didn't get this way overnight. You are not going to unwind this way overnight, and it's okay. So, how to set and maintain boundaries? It's building the muscles. It takes practice. Get clear on your limits. What drains you? What recharges you? Write it down. Remember that notepad I told you to get? Write it down. What are the top things that are draining you right now? What resources is it draining? Is it your emotional resources? Is your financial resources? Is your space? Is it your time? What is it draining from you? And what recharges you? What ignites you? What sparks your gets you going? Write those down too. We want to communicate our boundaries clearly, but also using I statements. And if you haven't seen the video on communication and I statements and fighting fair and all those things, you need to go back in the relationship series and watch those. And I will have that tagged in this for you as well, because it's really important that we own those boundaries are mine. They're not, you will not talk to me like that, and you will not XYZ. They're mine. I am going to respect my space. I am going to respect my time. I am going to respect my emotional bandwidth, whatever we're thinking. But it's mine. It's mine. It's about protecting. You statements make it about punishing. I statements are about protecting. Remember, we're locking our front door. We don't have to give a reason why we locked our front door. You don't sit and think, well, I better make sure all the people around me know this is not personal to them why I'm hitting that lock on my front door when I leave the house. No, nobody, we're not thinking like that. Why do we think like that with boundaries? I don't get it, because we do. We feel like we have to defend them and explain them and give them all kinds of rationale and reasoning. No, we don't. But we do need to own them, and we do need to clarify them, communicate them in a clarified way. And we do need to be transparent with them. And we're going to have pushback. We're going to have people who, aren't at the same space with us. Not everyone's going to like a boundary. That's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them toxic. It just means they also are going to have to learn a new way of doing something with you. Guess what? Y'all have had this thing going this way for so long. It's not going to just change on a dime. And if it's a relationship worth investing in, then give it the space, redirect it, correct it, remind, remove yourself, take initiative of it, follow through with your boundary. A boundary without an action, kind of just a wish. You need to follow through. If it's end the conversation or not commit to something or give yourself time and space, whatever that means, you need to have a follow through plan. Okay, I know we've talked a lot about this, and we could really go. This is a scratch of the boundary iceberg. There's a lot to this, and it can go very complicated for us, but let's kind of keep it simple here because we want to keep it actionable. We're going to keep diving into things, and we'll take a new layer next time. But your homework assignment this week is I challenge you to identify one boundary you need to set. One. Write down the area in your life where you feel drained. Identify what boundary could help. Take one step into setting or reinforcing that boundary this week. Then come back and tell me how it went in the comments, or share what boundary you're going to put out this week in the comments below. Let's support each other in this journey. We're not islands. We need each other. We're growing in wellness and strength together. If this episode gave you any aha moments, hit that subscribe button. Help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to me. And every like and every comment and every share helps spread the message of mental wellness and living a life of goodness and peace and hope. Drop a comment below. What's that boundary you're working on right now? Let's support each other in the comments. And remember, stay curious, be kind, and keep your mind nerdy. See you next week.